Welcome to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken. Shep will talk with some of the smartest thinkers in business to help make you more successful in your professional and personal life. This is Amazing Business Radio with Shep Hyken.
Hello, everybody. It's Shep Hyken here. We're back with another episode of Amazing Business Radio. I have a great guest today, Anurag Dhingra, who is the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Cisco Collaboration. We're going to be talking about everything related to customer service and experience, especially in the contact center world. But believe me, you're going to hear all kinds of information about AI, about what's coming down in technology. It's going to be a great episode. Before we get into the interview, quick announcement. If you've got a question or you've got an amazing story you want to share, please reach out to me on any of the social media channels because I'm pretty much everywhere. X/Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and more. And if it is a question, remember to use the hashtag Ask Shep. I'll either answer the question right there in the social channel on this show or perhaps in my newsletter, the Shepherd Letter. And if you're not getting that, just go to hyken.com and you can get it for free. Doesn't cost you anything. Every week I send out an article, and you'll also get my latest annual customer experience research. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump into the interview. Anurag, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Shep. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, well, we have a lot to talk about because you are with the company, Cisco, and one of your products is WebEx, which is much different than the first time I ever used a WebEx product, which actually was probably prior to 2010, and it was a webinar product. And by the way, webinars back then, wow, this is advanced technology. And then you guys bought it, and it's expanded to so much more. So why don't we start with a little history and what your area of expertise and what you do on a day in and day out basis with the WebEx product?
Of course, thank you for asking that. So, Shep, my role is SVP and General Manager of Cisco Collaboration Business Unit. And the Collaboration Business Unit includes products focused on improving employee experience and customer experience. And you mentioned WebEx. WebEx is definitely part of the portfolio. When we acquired the company many, many years ago, it just did online meetings or webinars, as you talked about. But since then, the product line has expanded quite a lot. We now do cloud-based calling, we do meetings and messaging, and we have whiteboarding and audience engagement tooling. And all of that is available as the WebEx suite. So we use the same brand name across that. But we also have a number of products that are in the contact center or customer experience space. So that is also part of the portfolio. The brand, we use the brand WebEx for everything, but it's definitely way bigger than the product that you remember back in the day.
Right. Well, that's exactly why we're here, because your product has morphed into something that ties in to the customer support world and customer experience world. So why don't we just kick it off with what you think the current state of customer service and experience is going on right now as we talk? Is it great? Could it be better? Is it going down? You know, there have been so many articles about how customer service is getting worse. Is it really getting worse? What's your take on that?
Well, I'm going to start by saying it's not meeting expectation of users. Let's just say that, right? Is it getting better? I guess no, because there's still a huge gap between what people expect from their customer service experience and what they're getting. Now, on the positive side, I do think that the technology advances are giving us the raw tools that can elevate the experience that we can all deliver. But today, if you ask a normal person, were they happy with their last customer service experience? I bet you the answer is going to be no more often than yes.
Why do you think that is? I have a theory, and I'll share my theory, but I want to hear yours first.
Yeah, so I think there's a gap because there are several factors here. So first, I think the promise of the technology hasn't been completely delivered and fulfilled. Yep. There are lots of good building blocks, but they haven't been put together in a way that elevates the experience. Sometimes that's because companies, brands, they have outdated tech stacks, they have outdated processes, and they haven't been able to modernize their infrastructure. Sometimes because of that. Other times, I think the hype is running ahead of the product realities, and this tends to be true for AI. There's a lot of hype there, but the real experience that we have been able to deliver as an industry is still not quite where people expect to be. When you think about what makes a great experience, you are looking forward to maybe picking up the phone or on a digital channel, immediately getting to the core of the problem, immediately getting resolution. You don't want to be on hold. You don't want to be bouncing from an agent to an agent. You want to be able to resolve your things immediately. And then, even better if you don't even have to call in the first place, where things are taken care of proactively for you. That's what a delightful experience can look like. And there's clearly a gap in terms of expectation and delivery.
Well, I want to get to that gap in just a moment. As a matter of fact, in my notes here, according to whoever put this plan together for us to talk about, and I love it when somebody sends great talking points. One of the comments is only 6% of brands saw a significant increase in their customer experience efforts. And is that a survey type of thing based on what customers are saying about the company, the perception?
That came out of a survey of several brands and the customers that are engaging with those brands. So as you can see, there's a lot of talk about improving the experience, but the survey results show that the number is actually single digit improvement there. And so that is really just illustrating the gap that we were just talking about.
Great, great. And I want to talk about that gap a little bit more, but I also want to know, again, Cisco was known as basically a webinar platform, and you've moved into all these. And I think you use the word, you're like the GM of Cisco collaboration. So expand on the whole collaboration thing for me, because I think that's what we're trying to do. Collaborate with our customers to make them feel a connection that's beyond just what I would consider, I have a question, give me an answer, move on.
So I think collaboration has different angles that you can look at it. So one is the way you explained, which is I'm collaborating with the customer. So if I'm representing a brand, I'm collaborating with the customer to make them happy with whatever they're looking for. And there's another aspect, which is in order to deliver that amazing experience, I may have to collaborate with my colleagues, because even though I might be the frontline agent talking to a consumer, I might need information that others have. And so I might need to collaborate inside of the company. In fact, with the tools that we build, we believe that anyone can be a customer service representative. Anyone can do a job that delights the customer. And the touch points are very, very different. It's not always I'm calling the 800 number because I have to return a product. There are multiple ways you engage with a brand. You can do that on a digital channel. When you search for a problem related to something, that is engaging with the brand, like what shows up in that search result. And then brands can proactively communicate by collaborating with the consumer and proactively reaching out and trying to take care of things that might become issues in the future.
All right, so we're seeing, human-to-human experiences, digital experiences. Now you've mentioned proactive communication and collaboration, taking care, ideally, of a problem before the customer even knows about the problem, which is a super way to make that customer go, wow, I like this company. They seem to be on the ball. They care about me. And by the way, like means they start to trust. Trust means they typically stay longer. So I like that. All right, let's go back to the gap. You mentioned the gap between, I believe it was customer expectations and then what makes them happy, or the satisfaction level. What can businesses do to narrow that gap so the expectations are in line and they're very, very happy when it's over?
So I think it takes a few different things to come together, and solving for that full journey requires thinking about different touch points within that journey. So we talked about proactive. We've all experienced great proactive service. I order something online, the package is running late, I get a text notifying me that it's running late. One example, my flight is delayed, or flight is canceled, the airline can notify me upfront. Those are good examples of proactive outreach. But if it just stopped there, then I might still be dissatisfied as a customer. And so then what happens after that? A lot of people want to do self-service. They want to do things themselves. They want to be able to either engage with a digital channel or voice or a website and take care of things themselves. Like I may want to just find a different flight if my first one was running late, and I may just want to do it myself because I like to look at the options and pick the one that works best for me. So good self-service options are part of closing that gap. And then, every now and then you actually want to talk to a human. Because this is where trust comes in. When you have that human touch involved, there's a higher degree of trust. especially when things are mission critical or you're under pressure and time crunch. So when you reach out to a human across any of the channels, you expect an empathetic voice on the other side of it. You expect that human to know you, so you don't have to repeat everything. They should know why you're reaching out. So this is where data is very important for the brands to dip into and arm the agent so that they can jump straight to the core of the problem and not ask me to repeat again and again. And then at the end of that resolution, follow up if there is any follow up required. So when you think about all of that as part of a journey and you solve each of those touch points, then you can close that gap.
Yeah, I think that sounds like utopia. It's customer experience utopia. It sounds almost perfect. And I believe part of the gap also, and part of the problems in hitting a customer satisfaction level, and why we go back to the stat I mentioned that 6% of brands saw an increase. I'm thinking only 6%. Shouldn't it be more, with customer service and experience being so top of mind? And another interesting stat that came from your office was that more than 80% of business leaders in 2023 said improving customer experience was a high priority, but still only 6% saw improvement. I think part of the reason, and tell me what you think, I think we experience such a vast difference in the customer experience and service that we get, where one company just nails it, and then we get to the next company and they don't. And we're worried that what's that next one going to be like, regardless of who it's with. So that unpredictability and inconsistency is what part of what makes the public perception that customer service isn't what it used to be. Not that it was ever that good to begin with, for that matter.
You're right. I think there's also a piece that we should make sure we don't forget here, which is that even though the goal is to improve customer service, and so, maybe you measure that with CSAT or customer satisfaction, moving that metric is maybe the goal. But oftentimes when it comes to technology implementation or process improvements, the focus becomes cost optimization. And that's maybe misplaced focus. Everyone who runs a contact center has to balance these two things. You're always under pressure to optimize for cost, but you cannot lose sight of improving customer experience. Ultimately, that's really what your business wants. And so being thoughtful about what is going to move the needle on customer service, customer experience, and increase the customer satisfaction score will go a long way in overhauling systems, processes, and technology.
Yeah, the secret is understanding the numbers. If you're willing to do the effort, spend a tiny little bit more time, which, by the way, time is money in that support center. If I'm spending an extra 30 seconds with somebody on a call, at the end of the day, that might mean I was 3 calls short of what quota might have been, But if we tell our agents that they have to meet a certain timeline requirement, if they're looking at their stopwatch, all of a sudden they're going, how can I get off the phone as quickly as possible, possibly leaving that customer in a situation that they don't like. So it's a balancing act. Yeah,
it is for sure. And I think technology can help. And I think especially with the advancements in AI, I think we can solve for both of those things. We can save time for the agents and make sure that they are able to deliver an amazing experience. And I think I'm quite excited about where things are going with the use of AI.
Yep. And that's a perfect place for us to break, because when we come back, we're going to talk about AI, we're going to talk about personalization, and even more. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking with Anurag Dhingra of Cisco. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Shep Hyken here with an offer that won't cost you a cent. You may have heard me talk about my annual customer service and experience research. We've surveyed thousands of customers matching the U.S. Census for age, gender, ethnicity, and geography. And we find out what customers love, hate, and want in a customer experience. What's the number one customer experience that almost every customer desires? What makes them come back? What makes them leave? Why won't they fill out surveys? What do they think of AI? Well, these questions and more are answered in the research, which, by the way, is sponsored this year by RingCentral, a leader in global communications. You can download the full report by going to hyken.com and clicking on the research tab at the top. Like I said, it won't cost you a cent, but it may make you or save you thousands and thousands of dollars when you understand your customers' expectations. Again, the website is www.hyken.com.
You're listening to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken.
We're back on Amazing Business Radio. We are talking with Anurag Dhingra of Cisco and all things related to customer service, contact centers, customer experience. We've been talking a little bit about the expectations customers have. And now I promise we're going to get into AI. But before we do that, the topic of personalization is so important today. As a matter of fact, we give a list in our annual survey of what's important to you as a consumer. We do consumer studies and we ask thousands of consumers what's important to you. And personalization shows up in that, top 7 or 8 every single year for the past several years. Let's talk about what a personalized experience entails.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on. Personalization is a key aspect of delivering amazing customer experience. And as a consumer, I think the first piece is that people want to engage with the brand on their own terms. And their own terms mean the medium that they engage on is their favorite medium. And in the old days, it all used to be a phone call. You would pick up a phone and call someone.
There were no options back then. It was either or show up in person if that's an option. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So those are the two choices. Now with lots and lots of digital channels, people like to text. They like to engage on WhatsApp. There's RCS as a new emerging standard now. There's Instagram. There's all
RCS standing for
rich communication services. This
right.
is a new standard for text messaging, and rich text messaging at that. And brands can have their own presence. So it's a new emerging standard, but again, it's a digital option. People engage on a website. So there's so many different options, and everyone has a way of communicating. And the expectation is that I should be able to communicate with a brand the way I communicate with other people, whether those are friends or family or anybody else at work. So I want to engage on my own terms. So that's a huge part of offering personalization, that the brand has presence and has the ability of engaging there. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is when I actually do reach out, that you know me and you know me well. You know my preferences, especially if I'm a repeat customer or if I've done business with you before. Understanding that and having that information available to whoever is helping me out as an agent or even as an AI goes a long way. And I gave you an example earlier about proactive communication in terms of flight cancellation or flight delays. A similar same example for travel is like when I reach out to an airline, they should already know if I'm a frequent flyer, if I tend to prefer aisle seat versus window seats, what is my meal preference, all of those things, because I do that again and again. And so if they know that, and then when I'm engaging with them, if they take that into consideration, they will be able to deliver a much better experience for me. And if I'm buying something from them, having the full journey of that experience and being able to leverage that can also help them proactively address things that I might be reaching out about. So all of that is really key. And without all of that context, it's always going to be frustrating in the beginning because I have to explain all of these things every time I reach out to a brand. So personalization is definitely a key enabler for good experiences.
So I think some of the phrasing that contact center agents use is important, like once I find out it really is you, I might say something like, wow, you've been a customer of ours for 6 years. Thank you very much for that. Now, I noticed the last time you called, it was about fill in the blank. Are you calling about this or is something else on your mind? I just think it just sets up the conversation in such a different way.
Absolutely. It makes you feel good right at the start of that conversation. And then, typically people, when they reach out to brands, they're more frustrated and irate than usual. And so something like that, what you just said, really makes for a good start of that interaction.
And by the way, some contact center leaders might argue that that's 20 seconds you don't need to spend. And
again, I think I'd go back to what are you trying to optimize for, right?
Right,
so
exactly.
You have to keep that in mind.
Are you trying to optimize to make people happy, or are you trying to optimize so you can just get them off the phone and move on? I don't know if you how long you've been involved with contact centers, but is the name Jim Bush familiar with you or familiar to you?
Not really.
So Jim was the senior VP worldwide of American Express, and he ran customer service worldwide. And NPS, Net Promoter Score, was essentially the way they managed and understood where if they were doing well or not. And he basically said to the agents, you need to make sure when we're finished that our members or customers who might be vendors or merchants, when they get off the phone with us, they're happy. They'd be willing to recommend us. So you need to make sure that happens. And there, you need to be efficient with the phone call. Don't get me wrong, but you don't want to rush it and get finished. And their compensation, part of their bonuses and compensation was based on that. And it trickled all the way up to his compensation being based on the front line, creating the experience where NPS was high. I think that's a pretty powerful statement when the senior VP level is compensated based on what's happening on the front line.
It's a very powerful story that illustrates how the right goal and the right incentives are aligned, and then they're going to deliver a delightful experience.
Yeah.
Amazing
And I
story.
also refer to something I call time to happiness. This is a metric. I think I made this up actually.
That's actually a good one. It's a good way to think about it.
So there's two ways to look at time to happiness. It's from, I have this problem, but I have to wait 3 days to call because I'm so busy. That means the time to where I finally get to call you and maybe get my problem resolved is much longer. But I like to give companies the benefit of the doubt and saying, hey, when the customer decides they want to start to resolve the issue, that's when the clock starts, not when the issue actually happened. But we need to understand that that issue might have been lingering on and on. And if you put a customer on hold for 30 minutes, time to happiness just expanded by 30 minutes. And that 30 minutes means that customer's probably not going to be happy when they finally get to you. But the digital experience that may need to morph into a human-to-human experience, by the time they're done, the goal is how short can we make that time to happiness without making that customer feel like we're just constantly rushing them through.
Right.
Yep. So AI fuels right into that, creating that digital experience. What do you think? I guess there's so many ways, and we could probably talk about this for hours, and I'm looking over at the time, but if you're going to implement AI in the customer support world, in the contact center, are there any, what are your top 3 suggestions?
Yeah. So I think one thing I'll say is that AI is very effective in making the agents more effective as a companion and as a helper for them. And I think that's a use case that you can realize today with a lot of success.
And by the way, that creates efficiency, which should make those people who are watching the amount of time we spend with customers and the dollars, that works.
Absolutely. And I'm going to give you 2 examples of how that efficiency is actually going to help delight the customer as well. So one is, if I'm an agent helping you on the other side of a phone call, the AI can be my co-pilot, giving me information that I need to deliver amazing experience. And this can happen in real time because my conversation can be transcribed in real time and the AI can make suggestions on what I should do next. So that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of that is at the end of that call, at the end of that interaction, AI can summarize it for me. AI can put a call disposition for me, and that saves me time as an agent, and that frees up time for me to actually help the customer when I'm interacting with them and not worried about, how do I get off of this and move on to the next one. So that's just an example of that. Another area where AI can be used quite effectively is for supervisors or for administrators, where they can leverage AI to figure out why people are actually reaching out to your brand. What are the most trending hot topics? And then maybe you can do something about it by automating some of those things, improving your documentation or your virtual agents, and arming your human agents with the right information in case people reach out to them. There's a lot that can go on that can give you insights around optimizing your full operations. But then the third one, which is where the technology is advancing quite rapidly, is this idea of an AI agent, where when you first reach out, instead of talking to a human, you're actually talking to an AI.
And it's not typing, and it's not a chatbot. It's actually verbal.
It is actually verbal, very natural, human-like conversation where you can pivot from topic to topic, where you can interrupt, and the AI is able to handle that. Now, this is still emerging. So this is why I mentioned this third and not first. This is still emerging, but the advancements that are happening there are very, very encouraging. And I'm sure very soon you'll see real applications, real deployments out there, this type of technology.
Well, I know Google worked very hard at trying to create the experience where your AI assistant, my personal home assistant coming from my the Google device,
Yeah.
could make a phone call and book a restaurant reservation for me. And the person on the other end, who's a human being, wouldn't know they were talking to a machine. And that's pretty extreme because I think still today, when I'm talking to a virtual AI generated assistant, it sounds like I'm talking to Hal, the computer from
That's right.
2001: A Space Odyssey.
So I think I'll say two things. One, I think you're absolutely right. The example you gave is a very complex, high complexity example. I think in narrower context for simpler problems, I think the AI can do that effectively today, but there's still a long way to go for a complex thing. Second, I'll say is I think if you're trying to fool humans that they are talking to a machine or not, I think that's the wrong goal.
Bingo.
I think the right goal is to not hide behind that. I think it's totally okay for you to know that you're talking to a machine as long as it alleviates some of your frustration. Like you're not on hold waiting for someone to answer your call. As long as you can do self-service and get the answers you're looking for, I think people would appreciate that. And so it's really what you optimize for and what your goal at the end of the day is.
Right. And I'm going to tell you right now, if I were to ask that question next year's survey, the baby boomers would still say they'd rather talk to a real person. They don't, I'm going to say they don't get it, but they don't appreciate where the Gen Zs and the millennials are going. I love the way technology is making my life better. So,
Yeah, I think it's a journey, right? I think we're still in the early days of this journey, and I think it takes a while for people to get comfortable with any new technology. And AI is no different than previous waves of new technology. You can say the same thing about mobile phones or smartphones, right? So it's just a journey. We'll all get there. It just takes some time to be comfortable with new technology.
yep. All right. We are basically out of time, but I always ask the final question, and you know it's coming. Is there one last nugget of wisdom or piece of advice you'd like to share with us based on this conversation that we're having?
Absolutely. So I would say focus on the right thing, which is improving customer experience, and everything else that you do should be in service of that. And then I feel like the advancements in AI specifically are finally reaching to a point where we can deliver on the promise that we've been saying for a long time as an industry. And it should be possible very, very soon to put all of these building blocks together that will help the human agent save time, but deliver amazing experiences at the same time.
So focusing not just on customers, but the agents as well. That employee experience becomes super important as well.
I think it's very important because one of the questions that people ask me is like, "Hey, is AI going to replace jobs in this industry?" And my answer always is, the jobs are going to change, the jobs are going to shift, and your human agents that are today really just answering questions and doing things in back office systems, they will start to become relationship managers for your brand, and so that's what we should stay focused on. Is really ultimately helping the consumer, helping the customer, and your human agents are always going to be a key part of that relationship building. So take care of them as well.
Right. So you're elevating the experience for both customers and the employees. And one of the reasons for employees it's powerful is you're getting rid of a lot of the basics and allowing them to really use skills. And you're probably going to train them to use those
Yep.
skills. They're going to feel great about that. And the happier they are, guess what? Happier customer is going to be. But anyway, thank you so much for an amazing Q&A session, a great interview. This has been wonderful. This is why we call it Amazing Business Radio.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
All right, everybody, that wraps it up. Another episode of Amazing Business Radio, and we will be back next week with another interview. Until that time, this is Shep Hyken reminding you to always be amazing.